Then, when the bombs are going off, when people are arguing and fighting and there's conflict and there's instability and there's this politics and that politics, and you open up the paper, you open up Twitter, or you open up whatever it is, and you see all these things that just destabilize the heart, you have a certain amount of stability to contain it, to be with it. So the more that we shine light into darkness, the more light we will be able to shine. The theme for today is shining light in the dark. And light and darkness across all religious traditions is a theme, because in the beginning, it's light. There's a few ways to look at this. One way to look at it is light usually represents some type of wisdom, some type of clarity, some types of knowledge and understanding. Darkness is just the confusion or the misunderstanding and all of the things that can go along with misunderstanding reality. Another way to look at it is, the sun and the moon. So darkness is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually just part of a cycle. And that part of the cycle is a hibernation, a gestation, kind of a recovery, repair. Robert Fulghum, back when I was a kid, I came across his books when I was 19, 20, 21, 22, something like that. He wrote a wildly popular book back in the 80s called Everything You Needed to Know You Learned in Kindergarten. And his second book, I think the story I want to kind of relate today, if I'm not mistaken, the title of that book was It Was Already on Fire When I Laid Down on It, or something like that. The story I'm going to relate now, I believe, was from that second book about it was already on fire when I laid down. He had become well known from his first book, and he was being invited to go around to conferences. And there was a peace conference that he went to, that was held. This was again back in the 80s. This was a conference that was put together by a really well-known and highly respected Greek professor, PhD doctor, or something in peace studies. And he was holding it in Greece on an island. In fact, it was the island that he was from. It was a Greek man. If I'm not mistaken, his name was Papadopoulos or something like that. And he went to this island. All these people who were into peace work back then went to the island. They had this big conference, and Dr. Papadopoulos was the host of the conference. And they had 3 or 4 days of like really amazing, difficult, because there were different people there that were, warring people, or where their cultures or their countries at war with each other. Wow, to talk about this, it almost makes me want to cry, because when I first came to Israel, forgive me, I'm just gonna give me 1 second. I'll get back to the story. When I first came to Israel, stuff like this was happening here. It was still the Israelis in power. This is one of the reasons I decided to settle here, is because I was coming off of 8 years of traveling and meditation, and I was spending time here, and peace was in the air. Can you believe it? Peace was actually in the air. It was after Oslo. It was also after Itzhak Rabin had been assassinated. The intifadas were happening, buses were blowing up, and but there were people, oh my God, despite it all, that were still coming together and trying to make peace, trying to, these types of meetings. So this is what this big conference was in Greece that Dr. Papadopoulos was hosting, and Robert Fulghum went. And wow, it's so funny to tell this story, because I read this when I was in my early 20s, and it kind of, it's almost like a seed was planted back then for me to be here today. I could say that about many things, but so at the end of the conference, Dr. Papadopoulos gave the final talk, and there were whatever 300 people in the room, and he said, "Okay, it's at the end. Are there any final questions?" And everybody kind of started to, grab their bags and get up. And then Robert Fulghum, he raised his hand, and he said, "What's the meaning of life?" And he didn't, it was the very end, and he was inspired to ask that question. And he didn't expect really to get an answer because it was at the end. And Dr. Papadopoulos kind of, everybody laughed, the room kind of laughed. Well, the big question comes at the end, just after they've been like doing hard piecework for 3 days. Dr. Papadopoulos made eye contact with him and held eye contact just to see if he was really serious or if it was just a joke. And he could see that he was serious. And so he told a story. The island that they were on, I'm thinking it was Crete. Dr. Papadopoulos was born there. And when he was a boy, this was back in the 80s, when he was a boy, it was World War II. German army moved into Greece at a certain point, and they were occupying Crete. There were some partisans fighting against the occupying army, and there were fights. And as a kid, he grew up in this kind of, this period where this was happening. And at some point through a little battle or something, a German motorcycle had crashed on the side of the road. Then the battle moved on. And as a local kid, that's got to be the coolest thing to go check out. So him and his friends ran down to go see this German motorcycle crash on the side of the road. When he asked the question, he pulled out his wallet, he opened it up, and he pulled out uh, like a little mirror, like a coin-sized mirror. It was in his wallet. This man was in his 60s or 70s at that time. He pulled it out, and then he told this story of when he was a kid in Greece. And he said that this motorcycle had crashed, and the rear view mirror on the motorcycle shattered. And he took one of those little broken pieces of mirror, and it became a souvenir. It's a pretty cool souvenir to show your friends that, hey, I got this mirror off of a broken German motorcycle. But it was like a shard. It was angles and stuff like that. So what he would do is he would go to the rocks and he would like file it down, file off the sharp points, the points on the, and he would file it down and rub it down until it kind of became a circle. And it became like a little round circle. And he made a game with this where he would go around to like the little crevices in the rocks and the holes in the ground, and he would find the right angle of the light, and he would reflect the light, into the hole so he could see what's happening in the hole. You could see if maybe there were mice in the hole or whatever. He would look in between the rocks, and that became his kind of toy because, probably back in wartime, they probably didn't have many toys, and that became his toy during the rest of the war. And he kept it all of those years. And then he said what he realized later is that this piece of mirror, it became a metaphor for him where where as a boy, he would shine the light into dark holes to see what's in there. It became a light to where he became the mirror and was reflecting maybe divinity or light into the darkness, the dark parts of the world. And so he was shining light into the darkness. That became his kind of life mission. And, from World War II, oh my God, we went from one line, World War II, some stability, certainly in Western Europe. Also, at a certain point, I guess in Eastern Europe, it was stable. Then there was the Cold War. Yeah. All the way up to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It was kind of one long period of stability. There was stuff happening, but, you know, societies were able to develop. And his life work became, a life passion of shining light into the dark places in the world. And he took the light, and there was a window it was the evening into the conference. The sun was shining into the window into the conference hall on him. He took it and he reflected the light right back into Robert Fulghum's eyes. He was like a little mirror, like flashing it. And then he said, "Are there any questions?" And that was the end of the conference. And that was the story he told. And such a great story, huh? So amazing. I'm inspired I mean, I guess I thought about this recently when I decided, probably yesterday, I decided that we do this today, but I haven't said this. I certainly didn't read it in years, decades even. I haven't told it in a long time. but I'm getting goosebumps from it. In a way, I'm getting re-inspired to kind of face a lot of darkness happening, around the world. I don't have to tell you guys, but there's something about that. We forget these moments where when faced with darkness in the world, and I'm not taking political sides here, even though I have a political opinion. I have my whatever that is, my orientation in the world, the way I see things. I'm not taking sides, and I'm not referring to any side that has more light or the other, not at all. But I do believe that, like I often say, that polarization is probably the biggest danger of humanity. I also believe that, not shining light into the dark places in the world is also one of the biggest dangers of humanity. And it's funny because those two things are together, because when we are really, really polarized, there's no more connection. We're just projecting onto each other, and no light is being shined through. Now, if we relate this to our meditation practice, the Buddha said that the mindful shine brightly like the moon emerging from the clouds. And it's so beautiful because they don't have to make effort to shine brightly. They just are. So what I want to do is I want to kind of bring this. I mean, in a way, we could go into peacemaking and conflict resolution here, but I actually want to bring it back to what we're doing with the meditation, because it's the same thing. What we're doing with the meditation is the same thing we're doing with conflict resolution or peacemaking. Um, the darkness in terms of our meditation practice is simply greed, hatred, and delusion. These three impurities of the mind. Greed, when we're hungry, or when we're driven by greed, we're not really seeing the world as it is. We're seeing the world as we are. There's objects of desire, and I'm just like, I'm just going after them, not really seeing the world as it is. We're seeing the world as we are. When we're driven by hatred, greed, hatred, and delusion, same thing. We're not seeing things as they actually are. We're seeing them as we are. So rather than wanting to go towards it, we want to push it away. And when we're seeing the world or when we're experiencing the world through delusion, again, we're not seeing the world as it is. We're seeing it not clear, but cloudy as we are. The metaphor of darkness in this case would be the greed, the hatred, and delusion. When we meet desire in the mind, desire in the heart, desire in the body, whatever you want to say, with mindfulness, the light that we will see is that it is impermanent. All right. Greed comes, stays for a while, and it goes away. Greed comes, stays for a while, torches us. Desire, 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 and then it fades away. Like everything else, it's impermanent. We will see, the light that we will see is that it is unsatisfying. Everything that cannot be held on to, there's no core that I can grasp, is ultimately unsatisfying, which means the grasping and the clinging can never be satisfied. Letting go is a tremendously satisfying experience. If I let it go, I can drop back into light, into reality, what's really happening. Greed, hatred, and delusion, it is all conditioned. My cat, she's crying for something, is all conditioned by impermanence, unsatisfactoriness. And should we be able to stay with that, see into the darkness? So these three universal characteristics are what we would consider the light in our meditation practice. So to shine light, like Dr. Papadopoulos did, he had to hold this little mirror that he had in the sunlight. So if the sunlight's here, it could work. If it was over there, it wouldn't work. So he had to find the right location. Maybe he had to find the right distance. And then to reflect it into Robert Fulghum's eyes, he had to find the right angle. That takes a little bit of fine tuning, refined awareness and fine tuning. And then when it hits the eye, you've got to hold it there effortlessly until Robert Fulghum gets it. He got the story. Same thing in the meditation. when the certain conditions have to come together for the light to be able to shine into the darkness. And in this case, the light basically means understanding. Darkness means that which we don't understand. Ever refined levels of awareness. Ever refined levels of awareness. In each level of awareness, you will see that whatever you're observing is impermanent. Whatever you're observing, it's unsatisfying, meaning it can't be held on to. Whatever you're observing is ultimately empty. It's all impermanent, it's all unsatisfying, and it's all empty. And at a deeper level, you'll go to a deeper level, you'll see the same thing. These three universal characteristics you will begin to see at deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper levels. Then, when the bombs are going off, when people are arguing and fighting and there's conflict and there's instability and there's this politics and that politics, and you open up the paper, or you open up Twitter, or you open up whatever it is, and you see all these things that just destabilize the heart, you have a certain amount of stability to contain it, to be with it. So the more that we shine light into darkness, the more light we will be able to shine. And that it continues to feed on itself.